الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Well, alhamdulillah, we continue to discuss the points that we mentioned in relation to the slaughtering and the points that relate to the sayd, the hunting and the likes of that. Barakallahu fikum. And we mentioned the points that are related to that. And just as a quick recap, we mentioned last week that there are the slaughter is of how many types? Three now. And they were what? Dhabḥ was one of them. Naḥr. And the third one would be the killing with the arrow or the likes of that. So what's the first then? The naḥr was first when we mentioned the naḥr. And for what animal was it used for? For the camel. Naam. And the naḥr was what exactly? What part? The upper part of the throat. Naam, the upper part of the throat. Where what? All of the arteries meet. So all the arteries meet at the top of the throat. And so this is where the slaughter is done for the camel type. And then the second. And that was that. What was that? The dhabḥ. The dhabḥ. Yani, and that is where? Lower part of the throat. What's the difference in terms of anatomy and the reason? Question clear? Which one is this one artery? The main. No, I mean which one? Which of the two is just where you can suffice with one artery? When it's not the camel now, so you can suffice with one artery, and so you can cut lower down and can suffice with one artery, and this will be enough to complete the slaughter. As for the camel, you cut higher up, so that it's the point where all the arteries meet, and so that you cause the drain of the blood with more ease. Now, because the camel's larger. Now the camel essentially is larger. And so what we mentioned as well from the slaughtering is that the intent of the slaughter is to cause a cut to the extent that the majority of the blood exits. Now, so the majority of the blood is drained. And so with the camel, this is why you cut at the upper parts. The ghanam or the bakr, the cow or the sheep and the goats, then this is at the lower part. You can suffice with the lower part. Then we had what else? The third one, which was, we mentioned? Killing by an arrow now. By the arrow or firing something. Now, to that extent. And in what scenario is this done? Hunting, could we say hunting now? What else? And ajaz, and if a person is not able, for every reason, not able to perform one of the two types. So this would be more likely for which animal? Sir? No, which animal is more likely to be, would you slaughter in this way? Of the animals we mentioned already. The sheep? Anyone agree with the sheep? So I'll repeat it. So we know that this third type is that you kill with the spear or the sharp object. And this is yani done if you cannot perform the one of the two aforementioned types of slaughter. Now, in what scenario is this more likely to occur? For what animals it's more likely to occur? The camel. Now, for the obvious reason that it's a big thing. Now, it's big. So it's going to be difficult to, yani, it's going to be more difficult to control the camel than it's going to be to control the ghanam. Now, so this is what is meant by that, barakallahu fikum. Now, this is what is meant by that. And so these are the points that we mentioned. Now, if, for example, a person slaughters the camel with the tariqah of dhabḥ, or they slaughter the bakr, the cow with the tariqah to naḥr, so the opposite of what is recommended. Is this yajuz? Is this permissible? Is this slaughter still acceptable? Question clear? Yes. Yes. So you slaughter the bakr and you cut from the upper part of the neck. And the camel you cut from the lower part of the neck. Is this permissible? Yes? No, agree? Disagree? No, salama fi Allahu a'lam. Salama. Now, it's permissible. So this categorization is mentioned ala wajh al-istihbab. Yeah, and this categorization is mentioned as something which is mustahab. Now, the recommended yani, manner in slaughtering and the best way to slaughter. Then we mentioned also some of the conditions for the slaughter. Some of the conditions to slaughter. And from the conditions we mentioned were three. The conditions we mentioned were three. And the three conditions were? Now, the first one, the person that slaughters has to be from the Muslims or from Ahlul Kitab. Now, and so this is what is meant by Ahliyah. Is what is meant by the person is qualified to do so. Now, qualified to do so. Second condition. That they mention the name of Allah. They mention the name of Allah upon that. And then the third, say now this I guess this will enter into the person being qualified. Now, so one's qualified is a Muslim, Ahlul Kitab, and he is aqil, naam, and he should be regarded as being baligh as well. Now, the third is that the slaughter is done with that which is the sharp object. And the sharp object should not be, as we mentioned, it should not be regarded, the slaughter should not be done with, for example, the tooth or a nail. Now, even if this is a sharper object or seen as a sharper object, barakallahu fikum. Now, and so even if it's regarded as a person does so with the sharp hadid, something from the iron, made from iron, or from the rock, or something from the qasab. The qasab referring to, you know what a qasab is? And the cane. So the cane, the edge of the sugar cane, for example, when you cut the cane, the edge of it is sharp. If you can perform the slaughter with that, fala bas. And so now, and then the Shaykh also mentioned the different forms of the qatl which should not be done. So the person performing the slaughter with the hajar, which is the blunt rock, naam, or the bunduk, or shabaka. And so, if, for example, now the person uses the net, now it's using the net to catch an animal. So, generally speaking, you'd use a net to catch what? Seafood. Nah, what else though? If you use it to catch sea animals, Jews, ekul, is it permissible to eat from? Of course, because of the general ruling of, as mentioned previously. Now, what would you use the net for? Anyone know? It can be for locusts, or the person can use nets for birds. Now, we use the nets for birds. So they put the net out and use the net to catch the birds. Now, if they do so, and the bird dies within the net, now, Shaykh Fawzani mentions, فَلَا يُحِلْ مَا قَتَلَهُ الشَّبَكَ. So, it's not permissible whatever the net has killed. Now, if the net has killed this particular thing, then this is not permissible. Naam. And likewise as well, if the animal is killed bisadama, naam, bisadamatihi. So, for example, the person, essentially crushes the animal. Again, this is not permissible. لا يحل. Or, for example, by strangulation. So a person grabs the animal and he grabs it by the neck, and the intent could be to grab it by the neck in order to slaughter. But if by that action of grabbing the bird, it kills the animal, it's not permissible to eat from. No, it's not permissible to eat from. Again, a person now, so these things that we're referring to, the person may be using these means as a means to subdue the animal or to capture the animal so that they can slaughter it after and they can perform the cutting. Naam. But if that method that they use to subdue it ends up killing the animal, then the animal is no longer regarded as being from that which has been slaughtered. Is that clear, barakallahu fikum? And an example of that is the person grabs the bird by its neck, for example, and causes strangulation and kills the bird. And previous example we mentioned, the person puts out a net and they use the net to catch the bird, and by way of the birds getting caught in the net, it ends up dying. Now, this is now something that is no longer permissible to eat from. Likewise as well, if the bird dies due to al-ru'b. Al-ru'b, you know what al-ru'b is? Severe fear. Now, so essentially now I'm shocked. So if the person now, again, takes some particular means to subdue the animal, but in that means maybe they take too much, they do too much to subdue the animal to the extent that due to that shock and severe fear, that khawf, the animal dies. Then again, it's not permissible. And so, if now these animals are killed in this particular way, so they are slaughtered in this particular way, or they are killed in this particular way, then this is something which is no longer permissible for them to eat from. Now it's no longer permissible for them to eat from. So, and so, if now a person uses the manajil essentially is this is the blade generally used for farming. You know the blade that used for cutting the crops, the minjal or the minjal. It's used for the cutting of the crops, and they use this in order to hunt, and the person grabs the bird, but then they make they make the tasmiyah, they say the basmala, then this is permissible. However, if they grab the bird and in grabbing the bird that the bird dies, then what do we say in grabbing the bird? Then this is not permissible. No, I'm not permissible to eat from. So, and with the dhabḥ or naḥr, specifically, there are two conditions. Now, there are two conditions when it comes to that. The first of the two conditions is that يكون في الحلق. So it occurs within the neck, the throat. So the first of the two conditions is that the slaughter occurs with the throat. The cutting is of the throat. Now, and it's not, and that the two arteries have to be cut. Now, something from the two arteries have to be cut, and it's not that any other part is cut. If we're talking about the person's performing the dhabḥ or the naḥr, something has to be cut from the throat. So, and the second condition is that the madhbuh is hayya. Naam. And so the madhbuh is something is alive at the point of slaughter. So the animal that is being slaughtered, that has to be alive at that point of slaughter. Naam. And so it's not permissible now that, for example, you mentioned all these examples where the animal dies and then the person cuts the neck after that. Now, it's the point of this cutting is that the animal dies by way of the cutting, by way of the dhabḥ or the naḥr. By way of the dhabḥ or the naḥr. That the animal dies by way of that. Naam. And it doesn't die by way of any other means. Because as you mentioned right at the beginning, what is the intent of this particular form of slaughter? Is to do what? To drain the blood. Naam. So the blood is drained at the point of death. Naam. Because why? We mentioned less last week. Blood is impermissible and it's regarded as being something of fisk, another word, najis, naam, or khabith. Naam. The blood itself is regarded as being khabith, something which is of filth. And so the blood in of itself, if the blood is left within the body for any particular point in time, then it can be something which continues to carry illness and the likes of that. So when it comes to the hikmah of that is that when it comes to the slaughter, the blood is drained so that anything that is carried within that khubth, within that filth of the blood is removed at the point of its death. Now it's removed at the point of death, barakallahu fikum. And so this is why we have this particular ruling, except for what and what we mentioned last week. Now, the liver and the spleen. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasallam mentions that there are two morsels of blood that are permissible. So anything that is blood based from the animal generally is muharram, except for the two, which is the liver and the spleen. Now, except for the liver and the spleen. Barakallahu fiik. So these are the only two things that are permissible for a person to eat from, which is blood based. Which is blood based. Barakallahu fiik. Anything else, then it is not permissible to eat from it. It's not permissible to eat from it. And it's for that reason. Because essentially the blood is regarded as being something which is muharram. And so when the animal is cut, then it should be cut upon the neck, and this is what causes the animal to die. What are the exceptions to that, as we mentioned previously? Who can think of some of the exceptions to that? Hunting with the dog. Now, hunting with the dog with what conditions?
You said the bismillah before you had it.
So there was something before we let go now. Has to be trained for that purpose as well. Naam. And some of the scholars mentioned as well, in relation to the dogs and the dogs being trained for that purpose, that this is an indication of the fadl of ilm itself as well, the virtue of knowledge. That even with the haywanat, there's virtue found of knowledge. Because the dog that has not been trained, not taught, doesn't have knowledge of this particular act, doesn't carry the same ahkam as a dog that has been taught. Now, the dog that has been taught to perform that particular slaughter and hunt, the dog that has been taught carries the ahkam where that food is now permissible to eat from. Whilst the dog that hasn't been taught, if it kills the animal, then it doesn't mean you can eat from it, even if you mention the basmala upon it. So that's an exception. Another exception, something maybe more obvious. The animal has to be an exception for what I'm saying, from an exception of where you don't necessarily have to slaughter, kill it, cutting the throat. No, the animals that are found within the sea, as we mentioned previously as well. Now, animals that are found within the sea. So, now, as we mentioned that as well previously as well. And that is in what scenario though?
Ones that are hard to, for example, hunt down, for example, birds.
So those that are in is there difficulty in containing them and slaughtering them in that manner. So and these essentially is the main points we want to mention in relation to the slaughtering. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Now, these are the main points I wanted to mention in relation to the slaughtering. Wallahu A'lam. I'll conclude with that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And inshallah, what I wish to do next time is discuss some of the main points in relation to the hunting, the different forms of hunting, as well as the hal of the muttar, the scenario of the one that he lives in he's muttar, it's necessity, the scenario of a person in necessity. Allah Ta'ala knows best. So, for example, what do they do in that scenario? So, and what is permissible for them to eat, and how much is it permissible for them to eat, and the likes of that. Now, barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khair.